Sport and politics just don't mix. Well, tell that to the millions upon millions of people who tuned into two different Super Bowl halftime shows this past weekend. But this is far from the first time that we've seen the blatant mingling together of political influence in the world of sport. Welcome to Sports Simplified, and this is The American Dream is a Conservative Nightmare. For a long time now, there's been this really common myth that the sporting arena is one that is purely apolitical, where meritocracy reigns through healthy competition, where cultural barriers break down, a place where there is nothing but unity. And a myth it most certainly is. Even in the ancient world, sport was used as a social and political platform for the wealthy, providing patronage to top athletes in the day as a means of soft power and influence. Fast forward to the past 100 years and we only see growing numbers of examples of this kind of influence. The use of the Berlin 1936 Olympics by the National Socialists in their acceleration of power in Germany, the boycotting of apartheid South Africa from the 60s to the mid-90s, Tommy Smith and John Carlos's famous salute to black solidarity at the Mexico City Games in 1968, and even last year's controversial creation and awarding of the FIFA Peace Prize to Donald Trump for actions that in no way pertain to football. And it's not as though the NFL is free from these either. 10 years ago, the Super Bowl halftime show was performed by Beyonce, who used the stage to pay homage to civil rights activist group the Black Panthers and Malcolm X. In that same year, Colin Kaepernick also protested in solidarity with the black community, taking the knee during the national anthem prior to NFL fixtures. This stirred incredible backlash from the conservative right in America, most notably that of the ever so peaceful Donald Trump, who stated that Kaepernick should find a country that works better for him during a radio interview in 2016, followed by his desire to get that son of a off the field, stated in a speech in 2017 after he had entered the White House. Fast forward a decade and it looks as though conservatives have taken their cultural gripes with the NFL to a whole other level. Puerto Rican, Spanish-speaking, Grammy award-winning artist Bad Bunny was announced as the performer for the Super Bowl halftime show in September 2025. Within a couple of weeks of this, however, right-wing media organization Turning Point USA announced that they would be running an alternative, all-American halftime show, celebrating the best in American culture, faith, and freedom. Now, it is important for us to remember three key things here. Firstly, Puerto Rico is an American territory and has been since 1898. Despite the fact that they have no representation in American Congress or voting rights in presidential elections, Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Second, as a language, Spanish is the second most spoken in the United States, with over 40 million Americans identifying it as their mother tongue. But instead of some kind of acceptance of the artist's credentials or his ability to represent a huge community within the United States, conservatives instead used it as a dividing line, making the sporting arena into a partisan battleground. Yet I don't remember any need for an alternative halftime show when Irish band U2 headlined in 2002, or when British acts The Who, The Rolling Stones and Coldplay all took to the stage. And I wonder why. The third factor to consider is that the current US administration under Trump has been on a crusade of migrant deportation, with their infamous ICE agents seizing people, overwhelmingly those of black and Hispanic ethnic backgrounds, and detaining them without due process, with 2 American citizens having actually lost their lives to these officers in the January of this year. So, given the wider political climate within the United States at the time of Bad Bunny's announcement and the conservative backlash to it once it was made, the cultural gap in America only widened, whilst the bond between sport and politics grew significantly stronger. The controversy only fueled curiosity, with an estimated 128 million people tuning in for the Super Bowl halftime show, making it the 4th most viewed of all time. Compare that to the paltry 6.1 million peak concurrent viewers for Turning Point USA's alternative, which featured relatively low-level artists such as Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and a lip-syncing Kid Rock. It's fair to say that any attempt to belittle Bad Bunny's performance failed overwhelmingly. But this is one of the core issues. Bad Bunny's performance was never meant to be divisive or overtly political, and any messages that could be interpreted as such were those of positivity, promoting the ideal of the American dream of diversity, inclusion, and unity. Turning Point USA show, however, was deliberately political, a divide and conquer technique to instead enshrine the ideals of American, English-speaking, white supremacy. The idea that sport is apolitical is an illusion. Events like the Super Bowl halftime show aren't political because performers shout slogans or because politicians complain. They're political because sport is part of the cultural architecture of society. What happens on these massive stages shapes how people see identity, belonging, and power. And when the actions and reactions of those in and around the sporting arena are as divisive as they were in this case, the bricks making up the wall separating sport and politics crumble to dust.